Let me see if I can make this point another way, a few other ways. I do a kind of artwork where I trace over abstract images I create on paper or canvas. It comes after many years of practicing by looking for images and abstract patterns anywhere I see them, like the way you might see things in clouds, then take a picture of the cloud and trace over what you see so others can see it too. But I'm very good at it. In fact, there have been times I've gotten so good at it that I could see near photographic quality images and abstract patterns. Of course, you're probably thinking that it sounds like a hallucination, and if I had thought that when seeing them, I might have thought I was going crazy. Let's look at something else before wrapping up this point. In the wild, where our survival as hunter-gatherers used to be the sole focus of our existence, where comfort and security were largely unknown to our senses, we weren't sexually oriented. We couldn't be, or we wouldn't have survived. We were just like other animals who were at the mercy of the elements, where we went into heat during mating seasons rather than being constantly on the prowl looking for sex without the purpose of procreation. So at prime times of the year that were best suited for survival of offspring, we lost our sense of survival to urges we didn't understand, found mates, had sex, then went back to looking for food and trying to survive. As we began to be able to control our environment rather than being controlled by it, that heated switch came on and stayed on year-round, thus giving birth to sexuality, something it seems is still foreign to our nature as intelligent animals because of the way we misinterpret it. Take, for instance, how we're programmed by nature to mate in our early teens, with early teens, even if we're adults, but we don't teach that as normal. Then there's our sexuality, which is really a nervous disorder where, although it may provide some extremely positive benefits, misinterpreting how it affects us can have devastating consequences. So let's say a man sees a young girl and can't help but be aroused by her, or a young man is aroused by a member of the same sex. What about teenagers who get very depressed on the weekends but don't fare so badly during the middle of the work week? Or anyone who happens upon an abstract pattern that renders itself to them in such a positive way that they think they're hallucinating. When I was locked up in Texas for publicly exposing what was really behind Bush's invasion of Iraq, there was a young man from Nigeria on my unit who got 10 years for smuggling heroin here, who stayed in his room most of the time lying in bed staring at the walls. One day it dawned on me that he might be doing what I used to do, only purposely, watching my mind pull images from abstract patterns on the cinder block walls and concrete ceilings. So I figured out a way to duplicate abstract patterns on copy paper, then traced over what I saw and in on one of them, so if you looked at them both, you could see what I saw in the abstract pattern that hadn't been traced over yet. Then I showed it to him without saying a word. It took him a little while to realize why I kept insisting he look till he saw it. Then I saw the first smile come over his face since I met him. And that was it. He no longer laid in his bed all the time staring at the walls because he was cured. All it took was to show him that what he was seeing crawling the walls in his room was what anyone else could see if he took pictures of it and traced over what he saw. I did that as an experiment to see if my theory that there must be millions of people who think they are insane when all they're doing is seeing images and abstract patterns that are actually there, like seeing Jesus or Mother Mary in an abstract pattern and reacting to it in a highly emotional way. I could take pretty much any abstract pattern and find Jesus or Mother Mary in them, or pretty much anything else I look for or that my mind finds on its own. What it all boils down to is how, once I realized that pollutants were making me more sensitive to my emotions, I stopped getting caught up in them, the same as how I changed my attitude towards sexual urges once I realized that it isn't about me. It's about a switch in my brain that stays on all the time that was designed to only come on now and then, where the rest of the time I would otherwise have had very little idea of what sex was. These are the kinds of things we need to be taken seriously rather than seeing articles about studies come across our paths that we think mean someone's important is paying serious attention to what problems it addresses. The truth is that nothing I am saying is new, while the reason we don't look at life from these more mature perspectives is because the most important people in our society would rather we didn't. So when you see a study come out that seems provoking enough to have a national dialogue about, you can't just sit back and wait for it to come to you, because it won't unless you stand up and make sure that your wanting to know more about it is felt hard by our leaders. That is what I will do, if not only if I'm elected, but as a candidate now. Try and force these kinds of topics out in the open, where they can be discussed openly without ideological differences preventing the facts from coming out, so we, as the American people, can best decide what's real and what's not, and how to best to proceed getting something done about it that does more than make rich people richer, but rather actually works the best way possible at the time.